Hey you witches, how you doing today? We are back with another video and I want to talk about something that I think at this point we've almost all seen on the socials. Especially TikTok, I gotta say. I spend a lot of time on TikTok and there's some great stuff on there and there's some not so great stuff. And this is one that I really want to address, is the people who are saying, me and Hades were playing video games the other day and he told me. Or the girl that goes, oh, Aphrodite, I took it to her and we talked it out and I feel so much better now. Or the other one is, Bastet is reaching out to me. She wants me to work with her. So we're going to talk a little bit about what does deity work really look like and about the nature of deity. I think that there's some nuance here that's getting missed, and I think it's just a little bit misleading, and so I sort of wanted to maybe help clear it up a little bit. So we're going to talk about that today, but before we get into it, for those of you who are new around here, my name is Taya. Welcome to the channel. We talk about all things witchcraft, and for those of you who are returning viewers, maybe coming in from another video, welcome back. Thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it, and all of you, please consider subscribing. It's a really great way to help us build the channel. All right, deity work. It just doesn't look like that. Basically, it's not as visceral as that. Deity isn't going to appear to you in a fully fledged human corporeal form that you can interact with just like you would any other human. That's a really romanticized view. And now, can you have conversations? Can you even develop relationships with deity? Absolutely. But it is much more nuanced, much more subtle than a deity walking in your front door, sitting down on your couch and having a conversation with you. So the first thing I want to talk about that I think sort of underlines it all is the nature of deity. And not everyone might agree with me here, and that's okay. But I think deity they're like ancient spirits that have existed for millennia. And our timeline is like a blip in their whole lifetime. And I think deity might sort of watch over humanity as a whole, but do they take a focused interest on individual people? I think that they do and they can, but I don't think it's happening as often as the socials would lead you to believe. I liken it to humans and ants. Humans, we're just going about our business, living our lives, and sometimes we see ants. Sometimes we see whole anthills. Just like I think deity are sort of going about their existence in that ethereal other world in which they exist, and sometimes, yeah, they notice there's some humans there. Oh, look at them all busy down there building cities. Oh, look, they're like, oh, they invented a nuclear bomb. Oh, look at that. Like, things will catch their attention about us. But like the anthill, when you walk past an anthill, do you sit down and take a particular interest in each and every little individual ant? No. Could you? Sure. Like you could sit down, maybe at a picnic, right? And there's a little ant scurrying along, carrying a crumb, trying to catch up with the rest of the group, and there's a rock in his way, and you might reach over and flick that rock out of his way to make his day a little easier. For sure. But is that like a lifetime commitment to that ant now? No, it was just a fleeting moment. And I just feel like we sort of need to understand the grand, ephemeral, fleeting nature of deity. The grand scope of deity. We are like ants in their existence. So, all that being said, what does deity interaction actually look like? So I'm going to start with the one that sort of we hear, I think, the most often, and that I find is sort of the most egregious. Oh, Bastet is reaching out to me. She wants me to work with her. Is she, though? So, this is how I like to look at it. You sort of come into this life with lessons to learn, right? There are lessons and growth and development that you need to go through. And you have spirit guides who know this about you. And your spirit guides could be ancestors, could be familiar spirits, it could be your own higher self. And I think your spirit guides know what you sort of need to grow and develop in this lifetime, and they may gently nudge you in a direction. They may send you signs. But is Bastet sitting in her ephemeral other world going, Taya, I'm going to send you a sign? I think it's our spirit guides who are sending us the signs that, hey, this particular deity has something to offer for you. The other thing I also think is that a lot of the time, these signs were always there. We're just finally waking up and noticing them now. So, i.e., Bastet hasn't changed what she's doing. There are all sorts of signs and symbols in our world that might indicate that Bastet is the deity to work with. We just weren't noticing them. It's like sort of when you go and you're shopping for a new car and you're like, oh, I don't know what to pick. You finally decide, I'm going to buy a Jeep. And you get on the road and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, there are a lot of Jeeps out there. And all of a sudden you're just seeing Jeeps all the time. Those Jeeps were always there. They're not suddenly there because now you bought a Jeep. They were always there. You just didn't notice them before. And now that Jeep is on your radar, you see it all the time. And I think it's something similar with deity, right? Those signs, those symbols were, always there. It's just that now you're picking up on them. But okay, so you picked up on some signs and symbols, and, whether that came from deity or from your spirit guides, you're like, I found a deity I want to work with. So what does that really look like? So part of it is seeing those signs and symbols, and think of it like you're learning a symbolic language. You're learning the symbolic language of that deity, and now you're sort of able to take those signs and symbols and interpret them into your own life. But sometimes there is like more direct communication, but it's not like a verbal conversation. It's not like I took my problems to Aphrodite and we talked it out and she told me all the things I needed to know. Deity is not coming to you speaking in full sentences and paragraphs. You might talk to deity. As human beings, our first sort of line of communication is very often verbal. And so you may sit and talk to deity. Oftentimes it's done through prayer, right? And you might receive a reply, but it will be subtle. And you need to stop talking in order to hear and pick up on the response. So the response could be a sign or a symbol. It could be a knowing voice in your head that isn't quite your own, right? This thought that pops into your head where you're like, oh, that's weird. It could be a feeling washing over you. Like, I came to Aphrodite and I prayed and I told her everything that I'm struggling with. And all of a sudden this calming feeling came over me, right? It could be a scent or taste, some type of sensory input. The feeling like, oh, I feel like there's an arm resting over my shoulder, right? Most often, I think deity communication is done using some type of a communication tool. So like a tarot deck or a pendulum. And again, it's another symbolic language that you're saying, hey, come and communicate to me directly through this symbolic language. But as a caveat, I would ask you to consider, are those messages that you're receiving coming from deity, or are they coming from your spirit guides, from your ancestors, your familiar spirits, your higher self, because our spirit guides sort of have a much more vested interest in our personal well-being, our growth and development than any deity is sort of going to have. Now, in traditional witchcraft, I think probably the most common form of deity work you're going to find is pacting with or petitioning a specific deity to lend their energy or their focus to a particular working to sort of maximize the results. To me, that gets the attention of deity, right? Direct petitioning. I will, if you lend X to this, I will give you Y. That direct offer of a specific thing. It could be a specific, like an action. I will make this offering to you. I will do this prayer to you. I will volunteer in your name. I will donate money, whatever it is, right? I will do this for you or in your name if you do that for me. And I think that brings us back again to communication and sort of counseling from deity. Have your offerings in place. Make sure they're culturally relevant to the pantheon from which you're pulling. And I think that would increase the likelihood of an actual response. But again, it will be a very subtle, very nuanced response. So that's just some of my thoughts on sort of deity work and what it really kind of looks like. Do you work with deity in your practice? How's it going? Like, what kind of stuff do you do? What kind of responses do you get? Is Hades playing video games with you? Is Aphrodite counseling you one-on-one? Or is it more subtle and nuanced than that in your experience? I'm curious to realistically know, like, what does deity work look like? So yeah, leave us a comment. Otherwise, that's our video for today. I hope that was a little bit thought-provoking, gave you some things to chew on, and yeah, we'll catch you in the next one. Mwah. Thanks so much, you guys.